Busch Gardens Williamsburg is a park that's always been pretty high on my bucket list, but as I approached the park this year, I couldn't help but think about the decline in quality at some of the SeaWorld properties. Fortunately, Busch Gardens Williamsburg was mostly exempt from this, and it was actually being ran quite well with the exception of one thing. Pantheon, the new for 2021, oh wait, scratch that, new for 2022 roller coaster has been delayed so many times. And worst of all, the park won't even acknowledge the existence of the coaster, making it difficult to predict when it'll eventually open. This goes for most other parks in the SeaWorld entertainment chain, with Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando, and Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego also. But Pantheon, for the case of this video, was mentioned because I truly think that that'll be the park's best roller coaster by far when it eventually opens. But unfortunately, that will not be included in this list because we just don't know when the time of its opening will come. Fortunately though, there are plenty of other fantastic roller coasters that come with a lineup ranking for Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Plus, so many of these rides are comparable to their sister coasters over at Busch Gardens Tampa in Florida, and those are rides that I also absolutely love. So it was interesting to compare the coasters in my head, and if you guys have been to both, then I'm sure you've thought the exact same way for your first visit. With that being said, let's dive right into the list, no pun intended. Also, real quick, if you'd like to support the channel, I would highly encourage you all to like the video and subscribe to the channel down below. But with that being said, these are the top 8 roller coasters at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Here we go. Number 8, Grover's Alpine Express. Kicking off the list is the park's smallest roller coaster, which is the Zero Force 190 model. This is comparable to Air Grover at Busch Gardens Tampa, which is their smallest coaster, and I believe the two coasters are clones or are at least very similar to one another. For kids coaster standards, these are pretty good rides with the surprisingly fun and forceful helixes and the good pacing that you take the windy layout with. When I showed up to ride this one, it was the last credit I needed and it actually turned out to be down, but within 5 minutes they got it up and running again, meaning I was able to snag another coaster credit. But other than serving that purpose, it didn't really impress me all that much. Obviously, this is not going to be a ride that's going to appeal all too much to thrill seekers like myself, but it is perfect for younger guests, so you have that going for it. Number 7, Tempesto. If you know me well, you know I really don't care for these Skyrocket 2 coasters, and Tempesto is no exception. Something about these really don't impress me. I find them to be too short, too repetitive, and they get old really quick. Tempesto in particular has the obnoxious comfort color restraints and does absolutely nothing to stand out amongst other rides of its kind. So after waiting in the painfully slow-moving line to get on, I was glad to have moved on from another one of these premier rides, Skyrocket 2s. Seriously, a mediocre ride in my opinion. Number 6, Loch Ness Monster. Opening in 1978, this classic-era looping coaster has been taken good care of by the park. It seems to run very smooth, and it has a couple of true highlights as well. One of them is the 2 interlocking vertical loops, which is actually the only set of interlocking loops that can be found on a coaster today. Another bizarre standout moment would be the tunnel consisting of a triple helix. Not knowing where you're going, but then realizing you keep on spiraling in the same direction sort of caught me off guard and had me wondering about the uniqueness of the ride. But as a whole, this is a coaster I've heard so much about over the years. It really is an icon, and even if you aren't a coaster enthusiast or maybe just a fan of riding coasters, you've still probably seen pictures of this thing somewhere on the internet before. But seriously though, what a fun ride. I can only hope the park continues to maintain it as well as they've been doing. Number 5, Invader. The newest operating roller coaster in the park, keyword operating, is probably the smallest GCI wood coaster ever built. But in my opinion, the manufacturer should really produce more of these on a smaller scale for parks that maybe can't afford a massive wooden monster. This ride was a nice surprise for me for a couple of reasons. One, coaster enthusiasts do nothing but hate on Invader because they say it doesn't deliver, but why on earth would you compare it to other GCIs? This is quite literally a family roller coaster. Also, in its defense, it does deliver. It has plenty of fun airtime moments and turns that you build up quite a bit of speed on. Plus, let's not forget about that drop in the back row, which is unique in that it's enclosed and it's also one of GCI's only straight drops that they've produced. But seriously, don't listen to the hate. There is nothing wrong with Invader, and I actually think it's a pretty fun coaster. Number 4, Verbolten. This ride was a shocker for me and my entire group, and I wish I could put it higher, but the lineup is just too strong to raise this thing past 4. Nonetheless though, this is a fantastic ride with lots of tricks up its sleeve. For starters, this thing has 2 LSM launches and is split with half the ride indoors and half of it outdoors. Personally, the indoor half is easily my favorite as you launch and dive downwards into a super intense helix and some other quick direction changes. Also, you've got some really cool pieces of theming and strobe effects that fit right in with the Black Forest theme. But best of all, at the end of the indoor section, you have a drop track on this thing, and between it, Hagrid's at Universal, and Wonder Mountain's Guardian at Canada's Wonderland, this has to be my favorite drop track. It is a very powerful, crazy element, very abrupt, and you will not be expecting it if it is your first time on Verbolten. As for the outdoor section, it's fun, but won't really impress you like the indoor section does. I'd personally guess that Big Bad Wolf, the coaster that Verbolten replaced, had a more intense and more enjoyable outdoor portion following the drop at the river. But otherwise, I don't think Big Bad Wolf fans should be too salty about this thing being the replacement. This is a super enjoyable coaster, and I don't think I would ever get bored riding it if this were my home park. Number 3, Apollo's Chariot. Now I know a lot of people have this as their number 1 coaster in the park, but I didn't think it was all that close. Now keep in mind that I only got one ride in the back, but the ride did not appear to be running slow, which leads me to believe that it's not an elite hyper like some claim. For me personally, I have it ranked as my least favorite B&M hyper coaster simply because of the incredible competition. But don't let that discourage you from riding Apollo's Chariot because this thing does have some strengths of its own. First of all, the setting is fantastic and the layout is worked beautifully into it. Second, it's intense with helixes mid-ride that'll probably cause you to gray out. 3, there's some floaty moments of airtime on the camelbacks, and although they aren't close to as strong as some of the other B&M hypers, it's still generally solid floater airtime. Though if I do have to say one thing about Apollo, it's that it was a great first hypercoaster from the manufacturer. I think they did a great job at the time for what they had to work with, and it meant that this coaster was the pioneer for rides like Mako, Shambhala, Behemoth, and more. In my opinion, this is a very fun and respectable ride, but I didn't have as high of an opinion on the actual ride experience as I personally expected to. Number 2, Griffon. This massive B&M dive coaster is essentially very similar to SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa. In other words, if you love that ride, you'll love this one too because they provide the exact same sensations. Now the group I was with got to experience this for their first dive coasters, and I was super happy about that because I think the ones with the over-the-shoulder restraints are much better than the ones with vest restraints. The airtime you feel in comparison is awesome, and the freedom you get is on a whole other level. So because of that, I truly believe that Griffon and SheiKra are the 2 best dive coasters in North America, and it's really not even close for me. In general, I absolutely loved my ride on Griffon, and I think any roller coaster lover will get a serious kick out of it. Number 1, Alpengeist. I know not everyone is going to agree with me here, but Alpengeist was running so damn intense that putting it at the top spot wasn't even really a close call. This ride has some of the whippiest elements, some of the best sequencing, and some of the craziest pacing in the first half for B&M invert standards. I know a lot of people criticize this ride for being rough or having a dull second half, but to me, the trims kicking in so hard is more of a testament to how ridiculous the first half is. Also, it's not rough at all. I have no idea where people get that from. Anyways, I kind of looked at this ride as you get a crazy ass first half in exchange for a second half that's maybe just okay, but it's still fun, don't get me wrong. But easily all of the rave things you'll hear me say about Alpengeist does come from the first few elements, like the humongous scale, insane positive Gs, and what very well might be the best Cobra roll on any coaster on Earth. So that right there should tell you enough about how much I love Alpengeist. I currently rank it in second for B&M inverts I've ridden, just ahead of Afterburner Carowinds, and right behind Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa. Truth be told, SeaWorld knew what they were doing back in the day when it comes to inverts. That, my friends, concludes my list of the top 8 roller coasters at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. For those of you who have been to the park before, I'd love to hear what your favorite coasters are and how you'd rank them all up. Also, a quick reminder goes out to you who would like to support the channel that liking and subscribing down below is the best way to do so. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye, everyone.